All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful psychological tool for changing behavior. And it all starts with a truly unforgettable and kind of terrifying story about preventing nuclear war. So, picture this. It's the height of the Cold War. A Harvard negotiation expert, a guy named Roger Fisher, is completely obsessed with this one terrifying problem. How do you stop a president from launching nuclear weapons when they're thousands of miles away from the horrifying reality of what that decision actually means? So Fisher comes up with this idea, and it is as simple as it is absolutely shocking. He suggests taking the nuclear launch codes, putting them into a tiny capsule, and then surgically implanting that capsule right next to the heart of a volunteer. And this volunteer? Well, they'd have one other thing with them at all times, a big butcher knife. So to launch the missiles, the president couldn't just, press some button in a far-off room. Nope. They would first have to personally kill this innocent volunteer to get the codes. Fisher wanted to make the abstract idea of millions of deaths immediate, personal, and just visceral. He wanted to bring the reality of death right into the Oval Office. Now, you can imagine when Fisher takes this idea to his friends at the Pentagon, their reaction was basically horror. They said, "My God, that's terrible. The president's judgment will be distorted. He might never push the button." And that was exactly Fisher's point. He had just brilliantly shown a fundamental law of how we all behave. Okay, so let's break this down. This totally wild story. It's not just about nuclear war strategy. It's a perfect, if, totally extreme, example of how you make a bad decision incredibly difficult. You attach an immediate and very severe cost to it. And that brings us straight to the core idea here. See, we usually focus on making our good habits satisfying, right? To encourage them. But Fisher's idea completely flips that on its head to help us get rid of the bad ones. This is what James Clear calls the inversion of the fourth law of behavior change in his book Atomic Habits. The fourth law is make it satisfying for a good habit. So to break a bad one, you've got to flip that script. You have to make it immediately unsatisfying. You do that by adding an instant cost to the action. It can't be some far-off consequence. It has to hurt right away. I mean, it's a really simple but super powerful dynamic, right? It's basically hardwired into our brains. We are way more likely to repeat things that end with a feeling of pleasure, and we are definitely wired to avoid things that end in pain. Our brains will do almost anything to avoid immediate pain, much more than some distant, abstract problem down the road. Now, this whole idea of pain being an effective teacher, it's not just some abstract theory. It's actually at work all around us, all the time, forcing us to learn and adapt, usually without us even noticing it. Think about it in your own life. When a mistake has an immediate and costly consequence, we learn from it incredibly fast. We don't just think about it, we actively make sure it never happens again. But painless failures, they're pretty easy to just ignore and, you guessed it, repeat. And you see this everywhere. These immediate consequences are literally what drive excellence and accountability in our day-to-day lives. The threat of a bad Yelp review? It forces a plumber to do good work. The chance of losing a customer? It makes a restaurant keep its food quality high. These instant penalties are incredibly powerful motivators. Okay, so here's the crucial thing to understand. Not all consequences are created equal. For a punishment to actually work, to really change behavior, it can't just be some minor little thing. It has to follow a couple of key rules to be truly effective. First up, the punishment has to be painful enough that it actually outweighs whatever benefit you're getting from the bad habit. So if the pain of procrastinating is less than the pain of actually doing the work, well, you're just going to keep procrastinating. And second, the consequence has to be a sure thing. It has to be reliably enforced every single time. If it only happens once in a while, we're just going to roll the dice. And this chart, man, it just lays it out so perfectly, right? Our brains are wired to respond to things that are immediate, concrete, tangible, and local. A vague, far-off consequence that's happening on some global scale, it's just not very likely to change what you or I do today. Okay, this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do we actually apply this wild butcher knife idea to our own lives? Metaphorically, of course. How do we create that immediate pain for the habits we really want to break? The good news is you don't need a capsule or a knife. There's a much more straightforward way to add an immediate, real, and concrete punishment to any behavior you want to finally get rid of. It's something called a habit contract, and it's super simple. It's just a verbal or written agreement you make, usually with a friend, to hold you accountable, that spells out the immediate penalty if you fail. So, if you skip the gym, you owe your friend $20.
instantly. If you eat junk food, you have to post it on social media. The whole point is to make the consequence immediate and absolutely unavoidable.
So, I want to leave you with this question. Just think about it for a second. What's the one habit you would finally break if the cost was immediate and totally unavoidable? Really, what would change for you if that bad habit came with a guaranteed instant price to pay every single time? That's the real power of making it unsatisfying.